Now we'll hear from two incredible people. Hussein Aboubakr is an Egyptian American who survived torture at the hands of the Egyptian government for his interest in Israel and went on to seek asylum in America. Hussein not only supports Israel but actively educates and speaks out on behalf of Israel personally and through his work as a Stand With Us educator. With him in conversation is the remarkable Yoseph Haddad, an Israeli Arab who volunteered to serve in the IDF and suffered a grave injury in the Second Lebanon War. He now defends Israel and acts as a public advocate for Israeli Arabs to integrate further into Israeli society. Over to Hussein and Yoseph.
Hello, everyone. I'm Hussein Aboubakr, an educator with Stand With Us. It's a privilege to be able to speak to all of you today. And today, also, it's an honor to have a dear friend with me, Yoseph Haddad. Yoseph, welcome.
Thank you, Hussein. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here as well. For those who are not familiar who I am, my name is Yoseph Haddad. I am the CEO of the organization Together Vouch for Each Other, an organization that tries to bridge the gaps between Jews and Arab here in Israel, as well as defending and talking about Israel abroad to actually show everybody the truth about who is the Israeli society, what the truth about the Arab Israeli society. I'm very excited to be here, and let's start. I'm very excited.
All right, Yosef, before I ask you about all of your work and about what you do, let me ask you about your story. How did you get to what you're doing today?
So, in order for me to actually answer this question, I have to take you back to my childhood because I grew up in a diverse Israeli society. My friends were Jews, Arab, Christian, Muslims, and Druze. We used to play football, or as you call it, soccer. No idea why, but we call it football because we played actually with our foot. Anyway, so we used to play football together, and we didn't really care about Arab and Jews. At the end of the day, we are human beings, and we were all Israelis. And when I grew up, my friends, the Jews, all the Muslims, all the Christians, all the Druze would visit each other, holidays, not holidays, eating together, drinking together, hanging out together. And when I arrived to the age of 18, most of my Jewish friends and Druze friends, they actually drafted into the IDF, while me as an Arab Israeli, I am not obligated to serve. So what happened is I asked myself a question: why wouldn't I serve my country as a citizen, just like my Jewish friends and my Druze friends? And at the end of the day, I've decided to volunteer because the Israeli Defense Force is the IDF. It's Israeli Defense Force. It's not the JDF, not a Jewish Defense Force. So when the IDF Israel, defends both Arab and Jews, and we have actually seen that in Lebanon. I was in Lebanon, and when I participated in the war, rockets fell in my city, Nazareth, the biggest Arabic city in Israel. And during the Second Lebanon War, Hezbollah, the terrorist organization, killed 19 Arab Muslim Israelis. Their rockets killed 19 Arab Muslim Israelis. It's very important for me that people understand this, because eventually, when I was there as an Arab, I wasn't fighting other Arabs. I was fighting a terrorist organization that sought to kill us both, Jews and Arabs. After that, I always volunteered and I always did something for my society, but not as what I'm doing since 3 years ago. Because 3 years ago, I saw that we are going backward. The whole Israeli society, the gaps are getting wider. The incitement and hate is starting to be more and more in our society, and I couldn't stand it. I couldn't see it, and not doing anything. So I quit my job, and trust me, I quit an amazing job. Just the fact that I had my own parking spot in Tel Aviv, that itself was huge. But when I quit my job, people thought I'm a bit crazy. Anyway, so I founded the organization Together Vouch for Each Other in order to bridge the gaps between Jews and Arabs, in order to share stories that demolish stereotypes and racist stereotypes and people. And you know what? Since we've been doing that 3 years ago, we grew up from almost just a few people to today for a network of over 50,000 people who are following our work and volunteering and sharing our stories. And we've achieved so many things in that area. And also, when we go outside and we speak about Israel, we saw that how we are actually impacting and how we are changing people's mind by sharing our stories as minorities, by sharing also the whole picture of Israel, which means when I say the whole Israel is that we say the truth, we show the facts, and when there is things to criticize about, we're not afraid to touch that and to criticize and say we want to fix that. So basically, this is how I started, and obviously, I really hope to to continue and do that. And also, I know for sure you have also some interesting story yourself, and I would like to hear it myself. So go for it.
Well, I had a very different, despite the fact that we're both Arabs, I had a very different childhood than you did. I grew up in Cairo, I grew up in Egypt, and as you know, there are no Jews. Unfortunately, not anymore. There used to be a large Jewish community that lived in Egypt, but it was expelled out of the country in the 1950s. So I grew up, there were no really Jews around me, but I heard about Jews everywhere as if they were there. It was in mosques, on TV. Talking about Jews was a popular subject, but not talking about them in any positive sense. A lot of just terrible incitement and anti-Semitic stories that are unfortunately prevalent in many areas of the culture. TV shows that are based on the Protocols of Zion, talking about how Jews, they congregate in dark basements and try to dominate the world and plan how to destroy Arabs, and stories in mosque sermons about the same thing, stories from my teachers at school. And it's just everybody believed in it, and it was like being fish in water. You don't even know it exists. It's just your reality. And of course, I believed it completely. There was no reason for me not to believe that Jews are terrible people who are trying to kill Arabs and Muslims and all of this. And this, of course, intensified during the Second Intifada. I was 13 at the time when it started, or 12. And I remember, the TV every day, just stories about how the Zionist soldiers were killing innocent Palestinian children, imagery in slow motion and songs and stories from Al Jazeera and all kind of media outlets that truly convinced me that there is this cancer in the region that's called Israel, and it destroys innocence and everything that's good. And, I need to fight
When
it too.
when the change happened,
The change
the,
happened
the
really
your
later. The change happened later because I embarked on a journey to learn more about those people I hate, just in order to hate them better, really. It was a journey that was really motivated by obsession more than anything. I'm obsessed with hating Israel and those Zionist pigs. So I went online and I started reading everything I could. I taught myself Hebrew, I taught myself English. And then I was shocked to find that reality was very, very different than the anti-Semitic mythology that I heard growing up. And it was really, really shocking because unfortunately that mythology became a part of the identity structure of so many people in the Middle East. A lot of people truly identify themselves or their identity by being opposed to Israel, hating Israel. And I discovered how really terrible the problem of anti-Semitism in the society is. And that I was 18, 17 or 18 at the time. And then I naively thought it was something that you can talk about openly. And I started talking to people. And I even, attempted the capital sin of visiting what was at the time the Israeli Cultural Center in Cairo, which was part of the Israeli embassy, only to find myself being interrogated later by the Egyptian state security agencies coming knocking at our door. And then I ended up getting in a lot of trouble with my family and the government. I was in military detention in 2010 for about 2 months and a half. Terrible conditions. I'm sure people can imagine human rights conditions in Arab countries and the prison system there. Um, After that, the Arab Spring started. I joined the Arab Spring. I was in Tahrir Square. I was with the demonstrators. There were a lot of hopes about democracy, but then things got worse. Even the issue of anti-Semitism got worse in general in Egypt and in many other places. And eventually, because of all the problems I had with the government, I ended up having to leave in 2012, and I received political asylum in the U.S. And ever since, I've been working with Stand With Us, going to campuses, talking to people, because coming to America, so I thought I was, coming to the land of enlightenment and reason and rationality, where hatred doesn't exist, where ignorance doesn't exist. But then I came and I found that reality also is difficult here. It's an ongoing battle here as well on many campuses, where people try to say the same hateful and anti-Semitic things about Israel on campuses. So I've been going to campuses and school and trying to educate people about my experience in the Middle East and about the situation of the Middle East in general.
Wow, oh, that's crazy. And I'm sure that the fact that you came to the United States thinking that it's going to be one thing, and then suddenly you've seen how much hatred actually there is, maybe even in a way surprised you that in some cases it's even more than Egypt. So I bet it was quite
In some
shocking.
cases, yeah. In some cases, it's definitely worse. And I would have to say that the situation even got worse, I would say, since I came here in 2012. I mean, when I first came here in 2012, the concerns in the Jewish community in general were about the strong anti-Israel sentiments on campuses. Fast forward now, and there is a genuine concern about anti-Semitism, like straightforward hatred to Jews and
Yeah.
not just Israel anymore.
Yeah, you know what? I have to be honest as well. I was very surprised. I toured also, around the United States. I've been in tens of campuses in the United States. And one time I spoke as well, not only campuses, but also in communities, Jewish community as well. And then I remember I got some criticism for speaking to the Jewish community when someone criticized me and said, you are talking to the people who are already sold, which that person has no idea that today even the Jewish community in the United States has a lot of problem regarding to Israel and regarding to what's going on in Israel. And in some cases, it's more upsetting and more worries me than anyone who's outside of the Jewish community, because I've seen a lot of Jewish Americans. They have lack of information about Israel. In a way, they've also been blinded probably by BDS activists or anti-Israeli activists, and they don't understand how much is important to speak within the Jewish community in the United States. That actually surprised me at the beginning. Later, when I kept touring in the United States, I understood how deep it is and how it's very important actually to go and speak with a lot of the communities, and especially the students, Jewish students in campuses. And I know now because of the corona, it's less now. But I hope that once we finish with this pandemic, we can go back, because we have a lot of job over there, a lot.
Definitely. You're absolutely right. And by the end of the day, the American Jewish community is part of the American society. It's part of the American community, live within societies, you go to the same institutions. And young Jewish students are not immune to the propaganda that is propagated on many campuses, not just by student bodies and student groups that are anti-Israel, but many times by faculty members. And a lot of times, as you said, this propaganda truly, succeeds in making many young American Jewish students take those positions. So it's very important to do this educational task, of course, within the Jewish community and outside the Jewish community. Also, the period of political instability that the United States is going through caused a spike in anti-Semitism, as we can see on social media, whether
Yeah.
Twitter, Facebook, or the extreme outlets such as 4chan and so on. And we saw how in the past couple of years, unfortunately, anti-Semitic violence quite escalated. Many innocent American Jews lost their lives at the hands of white supremacists, terrorists who attacked synagogues, whether in California or Pennsylvania. And that makes our mission even more urgent today. And I'm proud and truly privileged to be a part of it.
Yeah, it is, and I have to be honest with you. Like when we go and speak, we leave our the extremists. We actually leave them with no words, or we also, as I said, shatter their agenda. And we make it difficult for the extremists to hold their agenda because and I have this story to share with you. When I was at Harvard University, I came to speak over there, and then I asked the event organizer not to mention the fact that I'm an Arab. So when I stopped speaking, I was interrupted by a member of the audience over there, and he goes and tell me, with such an audacity, he goes like, you know what? I've been hearing you for about, I don't know, 20, 25 minutes, and yeah, well, that's exactly what I expected to hear from a Jewish Israeli. So, so I answered, my name is Yoseph Haddad, and I am an Israeli Arab with an accent, in perfect, with an accent. I'm telling you, everybody was like shocked. Oh my God! Like now, how can we answer that? Oh, he's not a Jewish. So that was quite fascinating to actually see their reactions. And by the way, over there was a few students, one from Gaza, one from Dubai, and one from Riyadh, from Saudi Arabia. Until today, we are in contact, and especially with the peace agreements, we're still in contact. We're talking together. But back then, before all the Abraham Accords and everything, back then after the lecture, they came to me and said, "Listen, we had no idea about 99% of the things that you said." The person from Gaza who's like literally there's like 100 kilometers between me and him. He goes like, "Wait, so you as an Arab can vote?" I said, "Dude, we have members in the Knesset that are Arab Israelis, Muslims, Christians, and Druze, and Bedouin as well." And he says, "We have no idea." Someone in Gaza was like literally a few kilometers from me has no idea about us. How can I blame someone from Dubai? How can I blame someone from Riyadh? And how I can blame also the Americans for not searching or not knowing, not searching, not knowing, because if you search and you study, that's something else. But when you have the ability, unfortunately, some of those people, such the person in Gaza, he doesn't have the ability to search because he's limited. His internet search is limited as well. So when he came to the United States and suddenly meet people and suddenly have the ability to also to Google things without any limitation, suddenly everything is becoming more wider and open. And I'm telling you that this guy, especially, he's now become one of the advocates for Israel. And we've seen also what happens with the Emiratis. I mean, listen, I have tens of friends from the Emirates that they speak now about Israel better than you and me, man.
It's true. It's actually quite amazing to see all of those positive developments, and we're going to talk about them in a minute. But let me first ask you. Look, here we are, both of us. We're both Arabs, and we found ourselves entrenched in this battle, fighting it on multiple fronts. Whether back in the Middle East with our own families, with our own people, trying to change the hearts, trying to change perspectives, or even in a country like the United States, trying to address that issue of the complete lack of information about the Middle East. Let me ask you about your struggles. What are the biggest struggles that you currently have with your work?
Listen, to bridge the gaps between the Arabs and the Jews, it is a struggle, but the struggle is not because of the majority. The majority of the Jewish people and the majority of the Arab people here in Israel want to live together, want to be side by side, to live side by side in cooperation. The problem is the extremists on both sides. They are the minority. The problem, they are louder, often more violent, and more united. And that's the struggle right now. Now, what happened is that we saw that we need to make the silent, calm voice, which is the majority, not silent anymore. We need to talk. So when we started our mission, and when we started spreading our message and doing absolutely everything in order for us to bridge the gaps, finally people from both the side of the sectors, finally they saw that there is like a roof to come and also to be part of this message and organization. And now, step by step, we are, growing and growing, and people now are less afraid. And what used to be a message of "I support you," but I'm afraid to speak in my community. Now it's become more obvious with every new volunteer that we have in our organization. But the struggle stays because the extremists, they will use anything in order for them to stop us. And you know where I understood, when I understood that we are on the right path and we were doing the right job, it's when you take those two extremists, which is they're far away from each other, and suddenly both of them are cooperating against us. So we managed to actually unite those extremists to work against us. There, I understood that we are doing a good job. And the reason why they are afraid of us and they want to destroy us is because we destroy their agenda. I'll give you the simple example, okay?
Mhm.
Our organization or our agenda or our message is leaving them with no choice to actually admit that they are wrong, because suddenly, okay, we're proving to the extremist Arab that all the Jews or most of the Jewish or the absolute majority of the Jewish are not racist and they don't want to kick us from here. Actually, they want us to be part of the Israeli society. And for the Jewish extremist minority, we're actually proving them that the majority or the absolute majority of the Arab Israelis want to be part of the Israeli society, and they're not terrorists. Okay, so for them, it's very, very hard to accept this and to see this, that it's happening. We need to bridge those gaps. We need to talk. We need to pass that obstacle, and it's possible. Okay, it's possible, Hassan. We can do it. We just need to be patient about it, and we need to believe in it. And that's exactly what we are doing in our community. And you asked me the same. You asked me the question, what is struggle? So obviously, this is my struggle here within the Israeli society as an Arab. So back at you, what is your struggle
Yeah.
as an Arab, as an Arab who also support Israel and living in the United States?
Well, first, let me tell you that we do believe in you, Yoseph. I think I'd be speaking on behalf of myself and everybody here staying with us, that the reason that we support Israel is that we believe in Israel. We believe in Israelis, Jews, and Arabs, that they can make it in a very, very tough neighborhood. Israel has already shown a record of remarkable success of political stability, social cohesion, that surpasses any of its neighbors. Um, about the struggles, life is definitely not easy doing what we do. I mean, by the end of the day, you're Israeli, you live in Israel. For me, the situation is entirely different. I'm Egyptian American, and I'm trying to deal with an extremely tough issue. So I think the biggest struggle is definitely me being alienated from my community. A lot of Arabs outside of the immediate zone of Israel. They have very negative images about Israelis and Jews. So the fact that I'm doing what I'm doing also alienates me, or basically make those negative views extend to me by proxy. So I think that's definitely one of my biggest personal struggles, is finding myself very far away from my family, from my community, from a culture that I deeply love. And also, you mentioned how you're accused of being a traitor. Same thing, of course, with me. I get messages from people all the time. I had close friends who stopped talking to me after sending me very angry messages about how I'm being a traitor and I sold myself. And I think it's one of the toughest things that it's um, that people don't even offer me, a lot of people, not everybody, but are not even giving me the privilege of assuming that I truly believe in what I say, that I'm not doing this because I'm lying intentionally, but because I truly believe in this. So I think that's definitely one of my biggest struggles. And another huge struggle that I learned throughout life, that when I started doing what I'm doing, I thought it's easy. That the moment that you show somebody the rationality behind an argument, and you show them, what truth is, they will immediately get convinced. And then I discovered that that's not true. That education is one of the hardest activities that any person can try to do. Explaining to people complex ideas about a complex reality, such as the Middle East. The Middle East is extremely, extremely complicated. We're talking about an ancient region, ancient religions, ancient languages, ancient identities, and very ambiguous and unclear lines between a lot of those things. And when you try to explain to people those complexities, it's really, really not easy. And that, really, that challenge is with everybody that I try to deal with. So I think that is professionally the biggest challenges for me all
Yeah.
the time, is how to try to refine my arguments, my ideas, in order to try to getting people closer to where I want them to be, to see the truth, to what is going on. And honestly, this year also was very difficult with COVID and the pandemic, as I'm sure it's been difficult with everybody.
Yeah.
And I was really questioning myself on what I'm doing. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, in August, you had the announcement about the Abraham Accords, and that changed me and gave me even more hope, and gave me even a bigger push to believe that this
Yeah.
is possible. It's closer than what I thought. That peace is definitely a possible reality in our lifetime.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what's amazing about the peace agreement with the UAE is that finally it's a peace agreement not between the leaders but between the people. And I'm telling you, we are seeing this. That's what's so crazy. Like,
Yeah,
in an odd way, I'm telling you that today it is more safer for Israelis to walk in Dubai than to walk in Paris. I'm not joking. I'm not joking. I mean, I'm probably gonna go to Dubai at in the middle of February. I haven't been there yet, but a lot of my friends were there, and they share their experiences, and they said this is just a phenomenal situation. We didn't really realize that, so that was really great. So yeah, and I believe that eventually these peace agreements will open more and more agreements. We've already hearing about a couple of countries that are, to be now nominated to the next countries to have peace with us. So we are waiting patiently and very excited about it.
definitely. And I know that the peace agreements are not gonna end the necessity of our job, because our job has to do with education, it has to do with telling people the truth, changing people's perspectives and how they perceive, the region, and how they perceive Israel. And I think that peace and the Abraham Accords is an absolute historical necessity, not just for Jews but for Arabs themselves. And it's a correction of a great historical injustice that was done towards the Jewish people in general, in the region and the entire world. Jews are not foreign to the region. They are not outsiders. They are an integral part of the Middle Eastern indigenous fabric. They are an integral part of that organic fabric. Culturally, religiously, historically, every single dimension of Middle Eastern cultures asserts the place that of Jews as a one of the central nations that formed our mutual history.
Yeah, and talking about also Jews and Arabs, what we also saw in these peace agreements, in the Abraham Accords, is we also saw finally the lack of representation between the Arab leaders in our society, in the Arab Israeli society, to what really the Arab Israeli want, the people. Because as everybody knows, the joint list, the Arab leaders, they voted against the peace agreement, but the first people were to go and travel and do business with the Emiratis were the Israeli Arabs. Because first of all, it's our
Of
mother
course.
tongue language. And second of
Yeah.
all, we want that peace. And I think realizing that it made it more obvious and clear about how our leaders, the politicians, are really disconnected from who we are and from what we want. And that's why I always like to look at it as this is the Israeli society. And the majority of the Israeli society, both Arab and Jews, want peace, want to live together, and actually expecting peace. And hopefully we will see those peace also in our borders, not just far away from our borders. And this is something very important for everybody to understand, that the
Yeah.
people in Israel want peace, and I will keep saying this and spreading this message everywhere and to everybody.
Let me ask about this point, because here you have a case of Arabs coming with Israelis and wanting peace and signing a peace agreement, and then it was Arab Knesset members that voted against the peace between the Arabs and
Yeah,
Israel. Okay, let me ask you, why did they do that? Why?
they say, there's a saying, in order for leaders to keep re-electing, you need to make sure that your society is weak. Because if your society is weak, you can control them. Okay, it's basic 1, 2, 3
Yeah.
in politics. Okay, so if they vote, they don't vote against it, and as we saw, the Israeli Arabs suddenly go and travel and they make business. And I'm telling you, I have a lot of friends that they had business opportunities with the Emiratis, and because of that, they will succeed and they will open more job opportunities within the Israeli Arab community. And this way we grow, and we actually also our socioeconomical situation will be better, and then we can see that there is more than what they are trying to sell for a job. By the way, as for specifically that thing, we are actually seeing the result of this. We are seeing that the result of the disconnecting between the leaders, our leaders, to our society, especially in the Arab Israeli society, where in the last polls just a few hours ago, we saw that the joint list down from 15 seats in the Knesset to only 10. It's about 200,000 votes less, and if they continue like this, they're gonna even be less than that. So that's exactly the reason. They don't want us to be strong. They want to keep us weak so we can keep re-electing them. That's their agenda. But I'm happy to
Yeah.
say that, us, the young generation, I believe that we're not naive, and we're not stupid, and we want a change. Again, it is happening, but it takes time. So I mean, it will happen. Just we have to be patient about it.
Definitely. And I'm me personally, I'm very excited about all of these positive changes in a
Yeah,
very difficult year in the whole world, whether in America or the whole world because of COVID. All of a sudden, this ray of light and hope comes finally from the least expected place, from the Middle East, that peace is possible, that people can live together in harmony. And I'll continue praying and working hard for this. And I know that everybody here at Stand With Us feels the same. We're all encouraged. Our belief in Israel and in peace between Arabs and Jews is even stronger. Yosef, it was a pleasure. I enjoyed our conversation. It's fun. I didn't want it to end, and I'm sure our viewers did too. Thank you very much for being with us.
thank you very much. It was absolute and mutual pleasure. I had the honor as well, to always speak to Stand With Us audience. It's an honor and privilege, and I hope everybody enjoyed our talk. It was fascinating as well, Hussein. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.